Welcome, everyone, to our event, My Life, My Business. Wish I was here. And as usual, we want to address topics that help us all to just engage with our lives in a way that makes it meaningful and joyful. A life that we wake up to every day and we're energized to engage with it. So, this afternoon, it is Shanaaz is going to be share the topic with us, and we we really addressed last time around. We addressed powerful questioning to persuade people. And if you want, you can go and listen to the playback on Clubhouse, or you can listen to it on our YouTube channel, the Mufasa Coaching YouTube channel. So, without further ado, I'm going to um, ask Shanaaz to take us through what I know is going to be a powerful 30 minutes. Thank you, Shanaaz.
Thank you, Jacques. So today I'm going to be talking. It, it hasn't really got anything to do with last week's topic. But it's something that has kind of come to my attention and been on my mind for a number of times. I think it definitely connects with probably some of what we have been discussing all along. I'm part of an organization, and one of their mottos or their favorite quotes, and it's really become something that I live by, and I've really started to unpack what that means for me in a range of different fields, and that is um, progress, not perfection. And I kind of really needed that, because firstly I was in complete denial about my perfectionism, and I think that as high achievers, we do, or when we are in leadership, I think that we may think that we are not perfectionists, but when I started to unpack and started to understand how my particular thinking and really questioning myself too, and maybe it has got to do with last week, because it's really about connecting with others, and I found that some of my ideas about what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve can kind of cause unhappiness or a disconnection rather than connecting with people. So, particularly around my sort of, maybe it's unrealistic expectations. Maybe my standards, or what I'm expecting of my students at a particular level is not really there, or I'm being misunderstood. And so that made me start to question about, not only how do I communicate, but my values, and how I put myself out there in terms of the work that I do and my expectations of myself and people. And I've slowly started to realize and come to kind of own that there is a little perfectionist sitting inside of me that sometimes actually causes me to stumble in my in my progress, and what I want to achieve. And I've had to come and befriend that perfectionist, and started to kind of think about progress, and rather than perfection. And by progress rather than perfection, what I'm talking about is, I realize that there are some things that I'm not going to get perfectly right. There are some goals that I'm not going to achieve immediately. And what I have here, before we go on to discuss what progress, not perfections, means, and the difference, I'd like you to think about. So apparently, these are some of the traits of a perfectionist. And of course, it's on a continuum, so you don't have to be this completely, but it's about maybe starting to think about these traits that I'm mentioning. So what they say is that when you have the perfectionistic traits, one of the things is that you possibly an all or nothing person, as in you will throw, if you're either someone's best friend or you're not their friend at all, is an example, or you go all out for an activity, completely obsess yourself with it for the next 3 months, and then possibly give up. Dependent. The issue with the all or nothing person is that some of our goals in life, you can't do it all or nothing. Right, and I've started to learn that, particularly when it comes to health and fitness, that is an area that I can't be that I need to address some of these issues in myself. Another area is that if you're a perfectionist, you sometimes require approval. Also, sometimes feedback makes you defensive. You also possibly have particular or high expectations on, sometimes bordering on unrealistic expectations of others. There's an element where you fear failure. We tend to procrastinate, and sometimes there are feelings of guilt when we haven't achieved our goals, and we can be people who focus on results only. And I think that focusing on results only is kind of where I kind of started to recognize myself. And when I don't see the results, that is when I start to have issues, and it actually demotivates me. And then I came across this little quote about progress is not perfection. And what they say is that how we tend to develop this, even though you may not regard yourself as a perfectionist, but what tends to happen is that, of course, we want to achieve the good things in life. We want to make a success of ourselves. I think for us as leaders, we probably have been in the top achievers, whether that was at high school or at university, or in sport. And so I think that there's already this trait in us to kind of want to achieve that type of success in every area of our life. And that is not to say that wanting to achieve success at that level is wrong, and we shouldn't want it, but it's to kind of think realistically that we all are unique and we have unique talents and gifts that will develop along the way. The other reason, which is why the podcast is here, is to enjoy ourselves. I think that high achievers, we struggle to enjoy our success. We struggle to celebrate the small steps. And I think that is where I started to notice that I want to focus on the results only. And when I don't see the results, that I become quite disappointed, and I become demotivated. And the thing is that there are certain goals in our life that is going to require lots of patience, and that it is not about perfection. It's really about the small steps that we make progress with. And apparently, where we actually get these ideas of wanting the results only, having high expectations, constantly expecting ourselves to achieve in every area, is going back to our childhood, where maybe mom and dad had really high expectations of us. And Or what could have happened was that we internalized some of their successes in terms of how they ran their life. Maybe our parents were successful in whichever area they were in, and somehow we internalized that, and really then had to meet those expectations of our parents. And the issue about this is that it can, when we do have, even though you regard yourself as not a perfectionist, but if you some of your character traits that I mentioned is similar to what I've mentioned in this list now, what you will find is that we may be prone to anxiety, and then, as I said, not really enjoying your life. So part of trying to focus then on this idea of progress and not perfection is about how to avoid becoming anxious, and how to embrace and enjoy the small steps of progress that we make. And so I found a little article by a psychiatrist actually, and she suggests this. She actually says that there are the 5 reasons why and how perfectionism can be dangerous and and be a roadblock to your journey to achieve success is this. So I'm going to mention the 5 things. She says that perfectionism can slow you down, and she says that those who aim for perfectionism end up waiting for the ideal time and the ideal circumstances. And when I read that, I was like, oh my word, that is me and so many other people that I know. Like, you want, it's not the right time, the situation needs to be perfectly aligned, whether it's the resources, whether it's the context, whether it's your capacity, for example. All of that needs to be organized and sorted out, and she says that this can actually hold you back. And what she says is that um, what tends to happen is that we get caught up in all the attention to detail, because every little detail requires an action. And what she says is that little do we realize that this amount of energy and action that we're trying to sort things out so that it's perfectly organized actually takes up so much of our energy that as a result we find that we run out of steam, because we want everything to be perfectly organized and ideal, that it takes up too much of our energy. We can't really focus on the journey and the goal. And as I said, that is me. I find that that tends to happen to me. And she says that we also, because we're so focused on achieving the results, we often may not be open to new ideas. And so what she says is that because we could become so worried that the outcome may not be perfect. And I think that I had to admit that sometimes this is what happens when I engage with students, that I am so focused on wanting them to do really well in their thesis that I forget that maybe they actually just want to finish it. And at this point they are not really worried. The goal for them is to be finished with their research project, and my goal for them is to dev- develop and become this critical scholar. So I think that I needed to kind of think about that. The other thing, the third issue, is self criticism. She says that one of the biggest issues with perfectionists and perfectionism is that we have that little inner critical voice, that actually can be dangerous to our health, because it can be demotivating. It can give one, make you anxious, because you are so busy trying to um, organize the situation, get the perfect results that you want, without even realizing that it's the inner critic that is fueling this conversation that you're having with yourself, that it needs to be right and it needs to be done in a particular way. And again, what she says is this is really not about wanting to achieve good results. And I like what she says. So maybe what we should think about is excellence. That, even in small steps, when we do things in small steps, we can actually make something, do something well, and we can do it accurately. And maybe that is the difference, she says, between focusing on perfectionism, getting all the details right, but actually thinking about how can I do something accurately. And so for me, if I'm trying to work with a student who I think is struggling, maybe what is the what is the process for them? What do they view as being accurate? Is it, and are the goals aligned? Another thing that she says is so self-criticism. And just to add that, as a counselor, what I do find is that with a lot of my patients that come to me, it is that parent that is in them, that voice that tells them they need to be good enough. They need to get good results. They need to, and particularly with professionals, that they have to achieve all the time. And I find that when you are in a competitive environment, that inner critic, that voice is often so loud, and it can make you quite you can become quite anxious. But I think it can also drain you of energy, because you are just constantly trying to I think you're constantly trying to compare yourself with others, and and it's that approval that you may constantly seek. And I find that this happens a lot, and maybe this is around the imposter syndrome that people, highly successful people, often have to deal with. Another thing that she said, which I really love, is she says, oh, I know it's weird to love it, but she says no room for failure. So she says that for for those of us who strive for perfectionism, even unintentionally, what happens is that there is no gray area that evaluates progress that has been achieved. So in other words, we are so again focused in on the results, that when we don't allow ourselves to appreciate and evaluate the progress that we have made and the progress that has been achieved. And I think that this has become a struggle, even for me with becoming fit. I do have unrealistic expectations, and I think fitness and health, for a lot of people, we tend to view that in definite results, but we do not celebrate the achievements. Just the fact that I am, for example, regularly exercising is an achievement, whereas maybe 3 years ago I wasn't doing that. And so, how do you evaluate progress? Another thing that she says is that it can create um, anxiety, which is then the problem, because anxiety is only going to make it will only make the situation more challenging in order to achieve your goal. It will also actually demotivate you on this journey to achieve your goals. And so what I'd also like to say is that what she then suggests is that the some of the tactics to address some of this, which is one of the things that I really like. She says you need to, the first one, we need to learn. And she says that those who strive for progress develop a mindset to learn. They are not let down by failures. In fact, they look at failures as opportunities to learn and improve, and they strive for excellence. So she mentions some research which I didn't know about, and they had these students study the failures of well known scientists like Albert Einstein and all the rest, well known scientists and philosophers. And they had to study their failures. And once the students in philosophy and science studied these philosophers and scientists' failures, their marks improved. And it was because they had learned from failure. And so often, for for us who struggle with failure, or the thought of failure, or have ideas of perfectionism, the idea of failure can often seem quite intimidating, and we are quite fearful of it. But in order to kind of think of it that failure, and I know we talk about this all the time, that failure then can be viewed as an opportunity to learn. And I think that that's really important for me, that I can learn from my past failures, to maintain my health. I can learn from my past failures to attempt to do finish a number of articles, etc. And I really appreciate that in this idea. She also then talks about motivation. um, it keeps you motivated when you're focusing on progress. And the other suggestion is that she says, when you're focusing on progress, you are always moving forward. And that she says that perfectionism and wanting that results always is a destination. And so what happens when we come to the end of our destination, and what I've often found with particularly health goals, is that when I've achieved something, there's always like this fallback or this anticlimax afterward, because I've reached my destination and now what? Whereas if I think of progress and learning is continuous, and progress and improvement is continuous. And I think that I really appreciate now this idea that focusing only on the results may not necessarily work for me in other areas of my life. Maybe in certain areas it works, but in other areas like my health and fitness and a few other things, it's not going to work. And I think that this is really what has kind of made me think about the steps of progress that I've made in my health journey, even in my academics, but particularly for me, I think it's about supporting my clients and supporting my students, to kind of rethink, what it is that I'm expecting of them, but also to kind of view it as, to help them celebrate the progress, the steps of progress that they've made. And what I just kind of want to end off is this little quote which I really like. And it says that, it's a quote by Abraham Lincoln, and he said, "I am a slow walker, but I never walk back." And I thought that that is amazing. So I tend to, in academics, we tend to complain and we have issues with students who are slow. But here they're really appreciating that the slow is important in this case, and that um, it's about the ability to celebrate and see the progress that you've made. And if I can continue to focus on the progress that I've made, then it will help me achieve my goals. Not only will it help me achieve my goals, but I can actually enjoy my success as well. And I think that that has made me think differently about some of the goals that I want to achieve. And so that's me today.
Thank you very much. I love the fact that you were enjoying this. Could hear it. But so it is so true. It's so vital. It speaks to me specifically about realizing that life. We always say it, but I'm not too sure how engaged we are when we do live our lives. To understand it, we consider life to be a marathon rather than a 100-meter sprint. With the goal in sight, and we try as hard as we possibly can to get there without pacing ourselves. And so the core for me, the biggest takeaway is, as you ended off saying, is focus on the progress that I have made. So that immediately captures my attention. It says, well, you know what is to actually stop and notice what you have done rather than always striving for that result that sometimes is not necessarily elusive, but you feel like you're aiming for a moving goalpost. You know, you just never arrive. So obviously you don't enjoy what you're doing, and there's always the next thing. But the stopping, the slowing down, the looking back and say, "Wow, look how far I've come," appreciating it. And you use the word celebrating it. I like that. And so settling down and celebrating the steps, it's like that momentum. I'm making progress. Wow. I'm not there yet, but I'm making progress, and loving the fact that the big counter that I use for myself is to say, I'm not going to be afraid to set the big, hairy, audacious goals. However, I'm going to enjoy every single step that I take while trying to reach it, and be present each and every step, and to step and say, wow, look what I've just done, celebrating that small gain. um, am I there yet? But sometimes you don't have to arrive at your destination. Maybe that's part of your legacy, where you inspire others to keep going for it long after you have left this earth. And yeah, so thank you, Shanaaz. That has just been great. Um, the last thing I wanted to say was, when you spoke about perfectionism driving anxiety and preventing that enjoyment of life. I thought, well, it's so on topic, and specifically this time of year, it feels like, wow, we're in the 10th month, and you look and you kind of go, oh, I'm running out of time. I haven't done this yet. I haven't done this. I still need to do that. When upon reflection, you could be grateful, count the many. When we say count the blessings, but to count the many aspects of progress that we have made for the last 10 months in this particular year. Anyway, I can go on and on and on. I mean, this is a topic
Yeah.
close to my heart. Thanks.
Yeah, and you know what? What I really like what she also says is she says that because it ties in with what you said is that like when we focus on steps of progress and our progress, then it opens us up to enjoy all the other opportunities that life has to offer us. Whereas if we're so focused on that result, we don't actually see that there could be other opportunities that could help us achieve the goal even quicker. But we are so like, tunnel vision, which, it flies in the face, to there's certain books that want you to be tunnel vision. But this is a new way of kind of understanding. Actually, let me, if I just focus on this little step, I could be open myself up to other opportunities. And I think that is what I really like about it, that it opens us to opportunities that life has to offer us, all the opportunities life has to offer us. Yeah.
Well, that is just absolutely wonderful. So we will end with that. So take a step, celebrate the step, focus on progress, and just open your eyes for opportunities to accelerate to where you want to end up. Oh, wow. Thank you, Shanaz. And yes, until next week, to be inspired again to keep going, and to know that every single action activity has meaning. Oh, and by the way, love failure, learn, or love to learn. I don't know.
Great. Thanks. That was really great. Thank you so much, Jacques.
All right, Shanaz, take care.
Till next
Bye.
week. Bye.
Yep,
Bye.
bye.